We are now going to look at a bachelor's degree for our program evaluation. Like the ASGE one we looked at previously, this degree plan looks very similar and has a lot of the same contents, but because it is a bachelor's degree, it has 120 credit hours associated with it versus the approximately 60 that comes with your ASGE. So starting at the top of the bachelor's evaluation, again we see a student name and ID number, the program the student is in, including the type of degree and the major. We see the catalog year. There isn't an anticipated completion date, but had the student filed an ITG or an intent to graduate, then there would be one listed there. And we have the school email address. Again, scrolling down, we see there's a graduation note, as well as information letting students and others know that unless this is signed, it's considered unofficial. The advisor area is still the same, and we have the note regarding remedial and developmental courses. So far for page 1, it's almost exactly the same as the ASGE degree. It's when you get to the second page that things start to differ a little bit. Primarily, we're looking at the institutional and combined required credits. For a BS degree, we see that there are 30 required institutional credits and a required institutional GPA of 2.0. For combined credits, you have to have a minimum of 120. And remember, this does not include remedial or developmental courses. Those don't count towards degree completion. And a minimum GPA of 2.0 combined with all of the different coursework the student has done. Again, we see the status information that's available to us, and we move back into our general studies program. Now, in the bachelor's region, there can be some differences between general studies based on the degree type. A lot of programs will try to incorporate 2,000 level and 1,000 level prerequisites into the general studies area. That way, when students are ready to begin their major, they will have the necessary background to complete it. Again, we see we start off in Area 1 with English 1101 and English 1102. You see a note that says that they have to have a minimum grade of C or more. We know that the courses are still required because we see one course needed next to each course number. And we see a note here that adds that students should complete at least 36 hours of the General Studies program before registering as a junior. In addition to that, please remember they need to have those Englishes out of the way within the first 30 hours of their time at Troy. Area 2 moves into the Humanity and Fine Arts area. Now, in this particular area, it is a little bit more laid out because, again, there are more credit hours within the bachelor's degree. So the first thing it says to do is to make sure that you are taking at least one course of a 1 to 2,000 level literature. Then you have the opportunity to take a fine arts, and it defines your fine arts as art, music, theater, film, or other fine arts areas. Again, so we see that it's very, very general and gives students a lot of room to pick classes they're interested in. And then it says take any two 1 to 2,000 level courses within an expanded historical and cultural scope in the humanities, fine arts disciplines. So this is expanded to include English, foreign language, religion, philosophy, classics, theater, music, dance, communications, sign language, the interdisciplinary studies courses, and other humanities and fine arts areas. So students have a lot of room here to pick things that they're interested in. And Troy Online and other Troy locations does offer classes in most of these areas if students haven't transferred them in. Again, we see that in Area 3 we have our math requirement. The minimum can be either Math 1110 Finite Math or Math 1112, which is pre-calculus algebra. They need a minimum grade of C. This is another one of those courses that they'll need to place into, as we discussed in the ASGE video. Area 3 in the science differs a little bit because instead of just picking one lecture and lab sequence, this time they have to have two. Now, in degree programs from 2014 back, students are required to take Biology 1100 with the lab and then choose a second one to proceed with. In 2015, the changes have allowed students to pick any two science sequences that they prefer. And as you can see just by looking on here, that there are a lot of different courses that could apply. I do want to point out this area here where you see GS-A3SCI, Area 3, Science Lecture, and then below Science Lab. This is for courses that come from other schools that don't necessarily have a corresponding course to one of the ones that Troy's offers, but it still allows them to use those courses in the science section. Area 4 on the bachelor's degree is not just history, but also social science. So it's broken down into two areas here under Area 4. First, you do have your history area, which requires the completion of at least one course. And then the second part allows students to take 3 courses from any of the following social science disciplines. And they define social science with this list, including anthropology, business, criminal justice, economics, geography, history, human services, leadership, interdisciplinary studies, nursing, political science, psychology, religion, social work, sociology, and other social science areas. Again, this is one of those things that they have really made broad so that students can get the most out of any transfer credit that they do have. Now you'll see in Area 5, this is generally where you do see more definition in terms of what is expected out of any particular major. So a history major, for example, may be required to take 2 sequences of history, whereas this is an English major that we're looking at currently. So you see that they have a lot of English coursework that they're required to complete in order to start with their major. You also see the IS-2241 and the Troy 1101 are in the Area 5 on here, as they were also on the ASGE degree. Now this next section was not on the ASGE degree that we looked at, and a lot of people look at this and they get really confused. So I'll try and explain it as simply as I possibly can. Students are required, while selecting courses in their general studies, to complete a 6-hour sequence in either a literature or a history course. This isn't extra work that they necessarily have to do, but for example, if you go back up to the social science section here, the student decides to take History 1111 for their history. Then in order to complete the sequence, what they would need to choose to do is in their second part here, where they have 3 social science courses they can choose, is take History 1112, which is the completion of the History 1111. That would fulfill their sequencing requirement. Or in this particular degree plan, you see that the student is required to take both parts of American literature as well as British literature. So you can see that by taking either one of these, the student would be able to complete their sequencing requirement. A lot of students look at this area and they think that it's completely different. It's just a couple of extra courses they have to take on top of everything else. And we should strive to help prevent them from doing that. Now we're at the actual major, so there's a few things here we're going to point out, but again, it's very similar to what we looked at before. So we see that we have a GPA achieved, which is none, and the needed GPA is a 2.0, which means that if the student has completed all of the coursework in the major, but has a GPA that is lower than a 2.0, then the GPA has to be raised by taking additional coursework. We also see a note about institutional credits earned and anticipated and required. So there are no earned institutional credits on this degree plan. There are no anticipated credits on this degree plan. And there are 12 institutional credits that have to be met within the English major. This note is new, and it says that there's the completion of at least one 18-semester hour minor. And so we can come right down here in this area and we see that there is a minor section that says the student does need to declare the minor. Not all bachelor's programs require this, so make sure you pay careful attention if you're unsure or ask an advisor. The major then lists out all of the coursework that is required for this particular major. Now, some majors are very, very particular in that they'll have every single course listed that the student has to take. Others allow students to have a little bit more flexibility. So we see that you have what I called core courses in the English 3341 and the English 4495. Then the major electives allow the student to choose from any of the upper level, which is the 3,000 and 4,000 level English courses that are available for them to take. We've already talked about the minor. The student will need to choose their minor and work with their assigned student services advisor to get that added to the degree. Then we get to our free electives section. For this particular degree, the student has 9 semester hours of free electives that they can take, but this number does vary from degree to degree. After free electives, we get to the senior level credit. Now, senior level credit refers to credit that is taken at a senior level institution. So this is going to be your 4-year schools, and there are some military coursework and courses that can be taken in order to get senior level credit. Junior level credit are things that are earned at places like junior and community colleges. Finally, we have the other courses section, which is where your other courses that don't fit into the degree plan will fit onto your program evaluation. Please remember that even if courses don't fit in any other spot on the evaluation, they are calculated into your GPA. As a final note, back to the senior level credit, I do just want to point out that this is no longer going to be shown on the 2016-2017 evaluations, but they are shown on previous ones.